up for the band one more time for leading us in worship today. Man, how blessed are we to be able to worship freely to our God. My name is Titus, Bourne. I am from Dallas. Any Dallas people in here today? Shout out. I am honored and humbled to be a part of the way tonight. It is popping in here, and I appreciate just the worship and being brought in. I just want to honor the way staff, Travis, Ethan, and Aaron, for being willing to bring me in. Yeah, shout out to them. Give it up for them for leading, and all the interns. I know they work very hard, and IABC is a great church. We are just blessed to have them saying yes to the ministry opportunity that is here. Like I said, I live in Dallas, specifically in Frisco, Texas. I serve at Genesis Metro Church as one of the student pastors. So 6th through 12th grade is my main area, and it's an honor to be with my people and the young adults, all right? So let's have a great night. Let's jump into God's word tonight. We're continuing this series of Abraham. I know y'all have been going through it and seeing all the different aspects of Abram's life. And tonight we're going to talk about God's timing. Abraham's life, you can sum up a lot of it by looking at God's timing. And the title of tonight's message is, It's Bigger Than You Think. It's bigger than you think. And trust me, you're going to hear that a lot tonight. I will be saying it a lot tonight because I want you to remember the fact that it is bigger than you think. But we talk about God's timing. I think a lot of the time, we hear people say a lot of cliche phrases about God's timing, especially with dating. Am I right? Like the whole let go and let God, Or hey, it's going to happen on God's time. He's not saying no, he's just saying not right now. Oh my, the cringe, right? The eye roll. The whole singleness is a gift. When you stop looking, that's when you find them. God is preparing both of you right now, just separately. Your partner's praying for you right now. Come on. And it's not that they're not untrue, right? They're not untrue statements. But sometimes they're used so much where if we're single people, it's an eye roll, right? Or not even dating, just in life, when you're waiting for that scholarship or waiting to see how that class is going to work out. It's like, let go and let God. It's just sometimes we hear all these cliche phrases about God's timing. And I think that we kind of grow numb to how important it is to rely on God's timing and not our own. And in the Bible, there's so many examples of the importance to rely and remember God's timing. And as we go through some of Abraham's story today and look at some other Bible stories, we're going to see the importance of relying on that. And we're going to find out that it's a lot bigger than we think. So we're in Genesis 16 tonight, picking up Abraham's story. Right now, he's Abram. And it says, now Sarah, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. Now we know beforehand, right, in the chapter before this, God made a promise to Abraham and Sarah that they were going to have offspring as many as the stars in the sky. And yet we see now in this chapter, she has borne him no children. So she says to Abram, this is dangerous waters, Abram. Behold, now the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my servant, and it may be that I shall obtain children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarah. Oh boy. So Sarah has a bright idea, and it literally says that in the Bible, okay? That's what it says, all right? Sarah has the idea, and Abram listens. And right off the bat, we see that Sarah is not wanting to wait for God's time, but is trying to push her own timeline. And what we have to realize is that there is a process to his promise. That if we want to live in the promises of God, we have to be willing to go through the process that comes with it. And I think a lot of the time we get so caught up in what we want, right? In our timeline, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get married, I'm gonna have a full-time job, and that's it. But what if there's a different process that God has for you? What if there's a different promise for your life that if you would just wait for him to do what he does, it would be better? Sarah wanted to rush the process. And this story made me think of a story that I experienced a couple weeks ago. Me and my girlfriend were driving to a dinner with some friends. And I'm the kind of person where I value being on time, okay? Don't get me wrong. You might hear this story and think differently. I value being on time, all right? The important things, right? The meetings, work, an event I need to be at, whatever it is. But when it comes to like casual, like hanging out with friends, I'm not like stressed about getting there right on time. Anybody else like that? Anybody else like that? Like it's like if I get there on time, I get there. Now who has to be there on time no matter what? Let me see the hands. A lot more of you. I understand. You're not gonna like me in this story. So we're driving to dinner, and I picked her up when we were supposed to be getting there, okay? Mistake number one right there. And it's the classic, she's kind of a little quieter than usual, kind of leaning this way in the car. I'm like, hey, what's wrong? What's wrong? Oh, I'm fine. I'm in the doghouse if she says I'm fine. It's not good. I'm like, just tell me now, and we can get it out of the way before dinner, because I did something wrong, I know, all right? And she's okay, let me say this. She's the sweetest person ever, so kind. But she looked at me, and I was caught off guard. She said, are we going to be late to everything for the rest of our lives? I was like, step back a moment. Oh, my God. It caught me off guard. She does not like being late, if you cannot tell. She's not like being late. She's not like being late. And I think sometimes we kind of have the same mindset when we talk to God. God, did you get the memo? Like, you're late. I'm ready for my relationship. I'm ready for my ring. God, did you look at the clock? Like, you're late. God, are you going to be late to everything? God, I'm ready for that boyfriend, that girlfriend. I'm ready for my purpose. I'm ready for the calling. I'm ready for the job. I'm ready for everything to work out the way I want it to. God, you're late. And there's a story in John where some people think Jesus is late. And what happens is there's a man named Lazarus who dies, and Jesus arrives on the scene, and his sisters are mourning. And they know each other. Lazarus was friends with Jesus, it said. But Martha, his sister, Lazarus' sister, says to Jesus here, she says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Lord, if you had just been here, God, if you had just shown up, if you would have just done it my way, God, this wouldn't have happened. And then it says in the next verses, but when Jesus had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. And the man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, his face wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said, unbind him and let him go. You see, God is always on time. There is never a moment that God is not on time. It may not be the way we expect. It may not be the way we want it, but God is always on time. See, God had a miracle plan when they saw a mess. He had a life to give when they saw a life lost. He had a plan when all they saw was pain. It's bigger than you think. It's bigger than you think. See, what if the process is so grand? What if the plan is so big that sometimes we just have to let go? See, I'm bringing it back around and let God. Sometimes it's not about getting what we want, but saying yes to what we know God is bringing to our lives. That's to saying, God, I trust you with the direction of my life. Because the process to his promise ultimately brings him glory, and God is the only one worthy of that glory. Because what is going to happen in this story is that there's miracles happening in Sarah and Abraham's life. They're on the way. In this story, we see a man raised from the dead, a miracle, right? But sometimes we get so impatient with God that we want to rush his process and then miss out on the miracle that he's about to bring. I hate for any of you to be trying to rush God's process to a point where you miss out on the miracle that he's about to bring to fulfill his promise in your life. But Abraham, what? He said he listened to Sarah. He listened to Sarah. It said that he took Hagar and they conceived a child. And when Hagar had conceived the child, she looked with contempt on her mistress, on Sarah. And Sarah said to Abram, may the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my servant to your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked at me with contempt. Some petty stuff going on right here. May the Lord judge between you and me. And it says that they sent her out, and they dealt harshly with her. Ooh, Sarah, be careful what you wish for, right? She said she wanted it. She said that she wanted it. Abram did it, and now she's mad at Abram. Gentlemen, she may say she doesn't care. She cares. She says, I don't care what we eat. She cares. I don't care if you talk to her. She cares. I don't care if you follow her. She cares. She cares. I don't care if we're on time. She cares. You have to reread the sentence in your head, all right? Take out the don't and then read it again. I care where we eat. I care if we're on time. I care if you hug her, all right? Start doing that, and I'll tell you, it'll get better. It'll improve, but you have to make that mental change, all right? You have to do that. But gentlemen, on the other side, sometimes, we break up with a girl, or we say, we don't want to be with her, but then we get jealous when she's with someone else. It's like, you can't have both, brother. You don't get to have both, all right? You said you didn't want her, now she's with someone else. You can't be jealous. That's not how it works, right? You got to be careful what you wish for here. Because I think sometimes on a deeper level, we say we want certain things, certain lifestyles, but then we get it, and it isn't exactly what we expected. We said we wanted it. We got it. But now we're upset because what we got wasn't what we thought we were getting. And there's a story in Luke about a prodigal son. It says that he told his father, give me what you're going to give me when you die now, and I'm going to go live my life. And it says that he went and lived his life, and he squandered everything that he had in reckless living. He spent everything. A severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate. And no one gave him anything. But how did it start? He wanted that money now. He wanted his plan now. He wanted his way now. And what did it lead to? See, I think sometimes we say we want to do whatever we want. We want to spend the money on whatever we want. We want to drink however much we want. We want to smoke however much we want. We want to be able to sleep with whoever we want. But then we get to a point where it's not working out the way we thought it would. That maybe we watch other people live it up and be so happy. But then we look at the end result. We look at where that process gets them. And so I'm not saying that to condemn you or to put you in a box, but I do want to say it to encourage you that maybe what you're wanting isn't what God has for you. Maybe what you're chasing after, maybe what you think is good now may not be good later. That reckless living can get us into some dangerous situations because it's so much bigger than you think. It says that the prodigal son was coming home, and while he was coming home, he was still a long way off. His father saw him. His father was looking for him. I think our Father is looking for some of you tonight. And he was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and then kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father says to him, quick, bring the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he is now found. His grace for us is so much bigger than we think. Your testimony is so much bigger than you may think. If you've chosen to step into life with Jesus, I love seeing Grady here get baptized and declare that he's following God. We can never fully, I think, understand how big our testimony can be for others to hear. And it's so much bigger than we think. God's grace is so much bigger than we think. Sure, we can never forgive ourselves for what we did, but God can and has. Because it's so much bigger than you think. Last example. The disciples, after Jesus died on the cross, so they went back to what they knew before. I don't know if you've ever had an experience with Jesus at a conference or at a camp or maybe on a Sunday night, and then Monday rolls around, maybe Friday rolls around, and maybe what you were talking about on Sunday ain't what you're talking about on Friday. And sometimes when we don't know what to do, we go back to what we were doing. The disciples thought Jesus was gone, thought it was over. This Savior is now no longer here. And so they went back to what they knew. But it was so much bigger than they thought. Because 3 days later, Jesus rose from the dead, making a promise to humanity that anyone that would confess and believe in his name would spend eternity with him. It was so much bigger than they thought. So then why do we settle for less than what he's promising? Why do we settle for less than what he has promised? And there's multiple promises throughout the Bible of what happens when you choose to follow Jesus. And a couple I want to hit on tonight is the promise of his presence. In Deuteronomy 31:6, it says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for your Lord goes with you, and he will never leave you nor forsake you." His presence in your life is the source of your strength. I don't know if you've been trying to depend on your strength or your capabilities, but it's God's strength that allows us to get through the seasons that we can't imagine we can get through, that allows us to endure the unendurable. It allows us to continue when we don't see a way. Second promise is the promise of his peace. It says in John 14:27, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." I think so many of us want to seek peace and the things that the world can offer. We want to find peace in that relationship. We want to find peace in that substance. We want to find peace in that class or that scholarship, or we kind of start making our value around these things. But peace, true peace, can only be found with Jesus, the one that he gives you when you step into a life with him. And another one of his promises, the third one we'll hit tonight, and the last one, it says, "But seek first the kingdom of heaven," in Matthew 6:33, "and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." That if you're looking for all these things in life, if you're in this in-between phase where you don't know exactly what's next for you, you don't know who you're gonna marry, you don't know exactly what your career is, maybe you just switched your major, maybe you're trying to figure out where you're gonna stay in the fall, you don't know. If you're in this in-between phase, can I just give you some practical advice? Put God first. Just put God first. Let him figure out the rest. Put him first. Seek him with all you have, and watch the doors that start to open. Watch the unexplainable start to happen, and watch yourself find a purpose in him that you can call freedom, that you can call something you want to walk in with confidence. That is what is at stake. And then finally, looking at Sarah and Abram's story tonight, this little excerpt from their life. We know God made a promise to Abraham. And we see that they're trying to rush that process. And I just want to encourage you tonight, don't rush his process. Trust his promise. That if all these promises have been made in a life with Jesus, then trust that promise. Trust his promises. Don't try to rush his process. Because if he can raise generations upon generations, as many as the stars in the sky, through a woman who can't bear children. If he can raise a man from the dead who had been dead for days back to life. If he can forgive the unforgivable and rescue the ones who betrayed him the most. If he can do all these miraculous things. If he can raise himself from the dead, then shouldn't we be able to trust his promises? Isn't he credible enough to say, I'm gonna follow and I'm gonna commit to a life with you? Trust his promise, even when it makes no sense. Trust his promise when it doesn't go the way you expect. Trust his promise when all your plans fail and the thing falls through. Trust his promise when that relationship ends. Trust his promise when that relationship starts. Trust his promise. It is so much bigger than you think. You have such a potential, and it might be so much bigger than you know or think right now. And God has a purpose for you. Seek first his kingdom. Don't rush his process. Trust his promises and watch what he does in your life. Let's pray. God, thank you for allowing us to come together and just worship you, Lord. For allowing us to come together and learn about you and grow closer to you, God. God, I pray that as these young adults go through the rest of their summer and start school off, God, that they can seek you. God, they can realize that it may not be their timeline. It may not be the process that they wanted. But God, what if you have something better for them on the other side? God, I pray for my fellow young adults to realize that we have a God of miracles, a God that can do things that we could never imagine. And so I pray that these young adults believe in that God, that they trust the promises you have made so they can step into a life of peace with you, a life with your presence, and a life with provision all around them, God. They don't have to continue to stay in that strife, in that stress, and that anxiety what the future holds. They don't try to figure out every little detail, God, but they can say, you know what? God, I know you know better. I know you have what I need. And God, I trust you to be the one to provide it. God, thank you for everything you have done and everything you will do. In your name, amen.